see. Open your mind to possibilities. Find your power, passion, and your purpose. You know it's time for you to walk in greatness. Let's murder mediocrity. Slay your goals, live out your dreams. Right now. Inspirational perspective.
I'm going to spend the entire show talking about intention, partly because I believe that this is one of the most powerful forces, and this is how we, in many ways, create our lives. This is how we have manifested who we are in this present moment, and intention is how we will manifest who we will be. And so I want to talk intention because when I think about 2022 and I think about goal setting for me is just a form of actively creating my life, taking full responsibility for my life. And I'm afraid that many of us, we haven't taken that type of responsibility. We haven't fully bought into the fact that how we're living today, what's happening for us in this moment is, in many ways, exactly what we've intended. I know that's going to trigger some folks, so just stick with me on here. Because if our thoughts have energy and they can create, if our actions have repercussions and they can create, again, remember, it's mine. These are my thoughts, my actions, my intentions, or even my goals or the lack thereof, then I am mostly responsible. I say mostly responsible for how my life is going. My life, in many ways, is a complete example of how the power of intention works. Neither of my parents were white-collar workers, both blue-collar. And for the most part, my father is the person that worked. So I grew up in a household where my dad worked, my mom mostly stayed at home and took on small entrepreneurial projects to help ends meet. I grew up in a non-denominational Christian household. And so even these power of intention, in many ways, what I learned from my parents through scripture, through going to church, was that for every cause, there's an effect. I think that's probably one of the most powerful things that I learned growing up. You know, for every cause, there's an effect. Who do you intend to be? What do you intend to cause? Again, intention. Intention is this importance of intention. And as I got older, I began to question everything. I remember about the age of 17 years old, I questioned everything. I questioned my faith. I questioned my parents and who they are and what their intentions were for me. I questioned the role I played in my family as the oldest of, at that time, 5 children. I was already feeling like the intention they had for me as an older brother was not the intention I wanted to fulfill, so I left home. I left at 17. God knows, at the age of 21, that is not the place I wanted to be. And not just that I was back home, but I was also broke. So I had no real volition. And what I mean by volition is options, ability to go out and be and do. I had no money to be and do in many ways, and I didn't understand the power of being at that age. And so I felt stuck. And as I recall, leaving, getting kicked out of college, that year was an incredibly tough year. Separated from my friends, separated from my peers, held up in this basement room that felt like it was the size of a shoebox while I tried to recreate my life with no real direction. And at this point in my life, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I was completely lost. So my mom, she would often, quiz me. What are you going to do? What are you going to do next? You just need to get a job. You need to do this. You need to do that. And I thought a job was a good idea simply because it got me out that house, man. Got me out the house. And so the one thing I knew how to do was detail cars, take care of cars. I had done that from the age of 17 to 19 when I was in the city for school. And so I decided I would go back to that. So I went back to detailing cars and found a gentleman who owned a shop out in Downers Grove, and I started doing that. But I knew, man, this is not what I want to do. And I would be around these older guys who were wiping down these cars and detailing these cars, and I'm thinking, man, this is not it. This is not it. Listening to them on Fridays argue about the calculations so they could earn just another $20. This is not it. But I didn't know really where to go. And the biggest problem I had is there was no intention or purpose for my life. And I didn't realize that yet until my mom connected me with a gentleman who was a CEO, African-American CEO here in Chicago, and convinced him that he should have a conversation with me. So after convincing him, she had to convince me. And I know that sounds weird, but that's just the place I was in my life. And she had to convince me. And the reason she had to convince me is because for me to go downtown with no car, I knew it was going to take a long time, 90 minutes, 2 trains and a bus. And for somebody who didn't have a lot of money and didn't have a lot of motivation and was not inspired in any kind of way, that was a tall order. But there was something inside of me that knew how I was living life and the game that I was currently playing was not working. And I had to do something different. And so I went. And meeting with this man changed my life. And part of the reason it changed my life is because he introduced the concept of purpose and creating with intention into my life at the age of 22. And for that, I will be forever grateful. And I feel like that it is my duty to pay it back. To pay it back, because I shouldn't have been in his office. I shouldn't have been connected to him. I know that it was a higher power that did that. And that's one of the reasons why I give the way that I give. Here it is. Now I have this purpose to be a speaker and a teacher. And I cannot speak. And I'm going somewhere with this. And so what I began to do is set small intentions. And finally getting into corporate America, I went back to school. I got my associate's degree, got a role, entry-level role in corporate America. And I knew from my purpose that if I wanted to help other people live the best life possible, that I should be a leader. So I set an intention to become a leader. That was the next thing I knew how to do. Like, how does one become a leader? But I had these barriers in front of me. One of the barriers is that I didn't have a bachelor's degree. And I remember going into the interview to become a supervisor at this job. And the managing interviewer, her name was Mildred, like my mom's. I'll never forget. Right? Her name was Mildred. The managing interviewer, she basically looked at me and says, well, why should we make you a leader when you don't have the education to be a leader. So there's a barrier to my intention. And then when I went and talked to my leader about the interview, he also said, well, leaders need to know how to communicate, and you're not an effective communicator. So I had two barriers in front of me that in many ways blocked me from my intention to become a leader. And so I decided that I was going to begin to address them. Re-enrolled in school, and as many of you know the story, I began coming home at night, watching the evening news and repeating everything I heard to teach myself how to speak. And that is how I am the speaker that I am today. Practice. And this is also why I believe that anything that we intend for our lives is possible, because the fact that I am hired to speak 20 years later is funny to me, because I couldn't talk. I couldn't speak. And that is also how I know the power of creative intention. What many of us don't understand about the power of intention is this. As long as we are in the conversation, the intention is being honored. As long as I am in the conversation, the intention is being honored. What does that mean? Right now, there might be someone who is having health issues, and they intend to have better health. As long as you stay in that conversation, it could be, and those who I coach know I do not like this language, but we're talking about intention right now, okay? It could be, how am I going to get healthy? I would take that. And by the way, I always say how as a distraction. But I would take that because there is an intention around health in that question. That's why I would take that, because intention is incredibly powerful. How am I going to get healthy? What do I need to do to be healthy? What does health look like? Somebody else might be wanting to lose weight. Being in the conversation is crafting or being with intention. And that will create, as long as you're willing to stay in that conversation, what it is that you intend to create. Problem is, most of us are so distracted that we can't stay in any one conversation too long. And most of us look to others to set our intentions, i.e., or for example, honey, do I look big in this dress? Right? So you go to your husband to set the intention. Baby, you look good. Okay, then we let the intention go. And that's why we never make any progress. It's not just the women. There's some men out there saying, babe, this shirt work or not? And she looking at it, seeing how big his belly is in that shirt. Don't want to hurt his feelings. Bottom of the belly coming out and everything. Baby, you look good. Okay. Intention is sourced through you, because that is the only way that you can create, through you. So if I believe I need to lose weight, there's no reason for me to have a conversation with anyone else if that's what I intend to create. And when I begin to have a conversation with someone else, I introduce resistance to my intention. Those of you who understand resistance, write that down. When you go outside of yourself to validate an intention, you create resistance to that intention. That's self-created resistance. First, let's start here. This is one of the reasons I take people to Ghana. No identity means no long-term intention, which is typically the root of no purpose. This is one of the reasons I always start with purpose. I always start with purpose. So we live in this world where information is plentiful, but the spiritual is experiencing an all-time deficit. And I think this is interesting. I believe that our parents, our grandparents, and those before us were far more spiritual than we are today. And they had far less information. So here we are with all this information, and there's something about this information that has depleted our spiritual capacity. And so we live in a world where we consult other people. We consult the culture. We consult the media and almost anything else before we consult with the Spirit. What is the Spirit? The Spirit is the Creator, who is the evidence and reason for all things. So this kind of like, let's wrap our minds around that first, because this is important. We live in a world where information is plentiful and the Spirit is at an all-time deficit, which is why many of us cannot create powerfully. And what you have now is what you've been told to have now: a home, a car, a job. That's part of the overall programming, right? That is, if you, all you have to do is consult anybody. You can consult a child. My son, who is 4 years old, could tell you, you probably want a car and you probably want a job. And then he'd probably say, you probably want some money. He might throw some toys in too. Okay? But he understands that that's part of the programming of the 21st century. And so the fact that we create those things, that's of no real consequence. But when you look at how we create those things, most of us don't like our job, most of us don't like our car, and most of us don't like ourselves. And part of the reason I believe for that is because we've consulted other people, we've consulted the culture, we've consulted the media, we've consulted everyone else but the Spirit around what it is that we should create. This is the beauty of purpose. Purpose has you look inward towards the Spirit, because the Spirit lives within us, and get your questions answered there. Most of us are looking to have our questions answered outside of us, which also creates, again, go back to it, creates resistance to your intentions. So what is the definition of the word intention? Merriam and Webster says, and they has multiple definitions. I'm just going to read 1A, 1B, and definition 2. But definition 1A is one who intends to do or bring about. So just ask yourself, what do you intend to do in this lifetime? What do you want to bring about? Not what someone else is saying. Because here's what happens, right? Like, what do you intend to do? Man, I want to drive a G-Wagon. That's not you. That's not Spirit sourced. And by the way, having those type of wants and fulfilling on those type of wants, there's nothing wrong with that. If somebody pulled up right now to the studio with a G-Wagon and said, Linal, this is yours, I would say thank you. Okay? So I want to be clear. Not saying anything's wrong with those things. What I'm saying is we have to begin questioning the source of the intent of desire for those things. Because many of us are putting the cart before the horse. I want a G-Wagon. You don't even know your life's purpose. To me, your life's purpose, not just to me, but overall, I can say with absolute authority, your life's purpose is more important. Definition 1B. The object for which a prayer, mass, or pious act is offered. An intention. So, prayer, meditation, mass, kindness typically comes from a place of intention. Check this out about kindness real quick. We're talking about the power of intention. It is medically proven, okay, that when I show an act of kindness to another person, that person's serotonin levels rise. Serotonin is the hormone that makes us feel good. That's what you guys are going for on Saturday nights when you go out. Did you know you can experience that just by being kind, by giving? But get this, the person who I'm giving to, serotonin's levels go up. They feel good. My serotonin levels go up. I feel good. And get how powerful this is. This is how powerful intention is. Not just their levels and my levels, but anybody who is witnessing the act of kindness experience a rise in serotonin, a rise in feeling good. By the way, this is what many of us fight for. This is what we're going for. Not even realizing that it's just on the other side of serving someone. Intention. Number 2, a determination to act in a certain way. Resolve. I shared those definitions because when we think about intention, I want us to think about those 3 different definitions this morning. What one intends to do or bring about. What do you intend to do? What do you intend to bring about into your life? The object of prayer, meditation, mass, or kindness, and a determination to act in a certain way. Everything on God's green and beautiful planet has an intention. Everything. Even the infinite space of the universe has an intention. When your intentions aren't clear, the consequence is tension. Why? Because you are not operating within the flow of force of nature that the Creator has created. This is why intention is so powerful. Something I believe many of our lives get cut short because we lack intention. The same way. Now, so everything on God's green and beautiful planet has an intention. Even the infinite space of the universe has an intention. We may not fully understand it. It may not be for us to know, but it has an intention. And so when our intentions aren't clear, the consequence is tension. This is why I believe so many people are stressed. So many people are confused. So many people are depressed because they simply lack intention. And when intentions aren't clear, the consequence is tension. So, a lack of intention creates tension. And this is because intention, listen to this, intention links us to the creative capacity of the Spirit. So, the reason why I can have peace even in tense situations is due to my connection to the Spirit. So the beauty of intention is when I'm operating with intention in my life, let's say in the 4 pillars of life, in my health and well-being, in my relationships, in my work, with my money, and within my purpose and overall spirituality, when I'm operating that way with intention, I live with reduced stress. This is the power of purpose. In order for us to properly talk about intention, that means that the idea of intention is sourced by spirit, and spirit is all about this life's journey. So I need for us to reframe our thinking from how we normally think, because we've been programmed to see ourselves as humans who are having a spiritual experience, or humans that can touch the spirit. That's how we've been programmed to think. That's how we think about things. And I want to really have you understand this morning that we are spirits having a human experience. We are spirits having a human experience. And when you look at a child, when you look at a baby, part of the reason for the curiosity is because the spirit is absorbing everything that is around them. And then somewhere along the way, the parents, the uncles, the aunts, other programming comes into play that throws it off kilter. And so we begin to look at ourselves more so as humans. So again, we are not humans having a spiritual experience. We are spirits having a human experience. So what happens when we disconnect from the spirit, the human body experiences tension. When we are connected to the spirit, there is a drop in tension. How many of you all know this to be true? Right? So right now, if what I'm saying resonates with you, I want you to continue listening. So we are all connected to a supreme creative capacity. I don't care what you call it. You could call it Allah. You can call it God. You can call it Yah. You can call it Yahweh. You can call it the Creator. You can call it Yahshua. I don't care what you call it. We are all connected to a supreme creative capacity. I want to talk about Max Carl Ernst Ludwig Planck. And this man was a German theoretical physicist whose discovery of energy quanta won him the Nobel Prize in physics back in 1918. So again, this is a scientist. This is a man of reason. And this is a man that looked to data for proof before coming to a conclusion. And if you don't believe me, go Google the name Max Planck. All right? And if you can't find that, Google his whole name, Max Carl Ernst Ludwig Planck. By the way, my wife was just teasing me because my son has 4 names. And I'm noticing here that this man has 5 names. And he did some great things. There you go, babe. All right, so that was just a little segue. All right, so this man is a scientist. This man is a man of reason. And this is what he had to say about his research on the atom. When I talk about the atom, I'm talking about the smallest piece of matter that we can measure, that man knows to measure. This is what he said. All matter originates and exists only by virtue of a force which brings the particle of an atom to vibration and holds this most minute solar system of the atom together. So what does he mean for those of us who may have, slept through chemistry and science classes? This is what he means. What he means is that the atom itself holds within it, just that atom, its own solar systems, right? Neutrons, protons, orbiting around this atom. Very much like our solar system operates, with the planets orbiting around the sun. Do you think that's a coincidence? Like, just for a moment here, do you think that's a coincidence? All right, but let's continue for the person who doesn't believe in the Creator. Max Planck then goes on to say, because of this, we must assume behind this force the existence of we must assume that behind this force that has the atom and the neutrons and the protons and all that rotating around this atom, very much like we know in this universe, he says that we must assume behind this force the existence of a conscious and intelligent mind. This mind is the matrix of all matter. Now, this is a scientist. saying that there is some creative force, some creative mind, some supreme being that did all this. This is a scientist who, by the way, when you look at quantum physics, what you find is that the deeper you look at something, the more I take the atom and I multiply it 1,000,000 times so I can look at it, then I see something else rotating and moving. And I see space within the atom. And no matter how far I can go, how deep, how much I can magnify, what we continue to find is another universe, another universe, another universe, another universe, something rotating around something else. And all matter, down to its minuteness, is held in order, as Max Planck says, by a conscious and intelligent mind. And this mind is the matrix of all matter, even when you get down to what feels or seems like nothing. The question is more so the source of that intention. Are your intentions God-sourced, self-sourced, media-sourced? This is what I was talking about when we had the show, how we're being manipulated. Because most of us right now, our intentions are media-sourced. We didn't check in with the spirit. Matter of fact, when I said check in with the spirit, folks got mad. But again, this is how we're supposed to create. Some of us, our intentions are friend-sourced. Ooh, I can't believe she just got a brand new car. I got to get a car now. So the intention for a car came from a friend that you're competing with. And then we wonder why we have so much tension. Because we're not connected to the ultimate source and allowing the ultimate source to provide our intentions. So I have to ask you an important question. What's your source? And think about it, because many of us right away will say, oh, the Lord is my source. Okay. Then why is there so much tension in your life? I mean, again, the scripture says that we shall know you by your fruit. What do your fruit look like? See, because then that's how we know the source of the intention. Or what they say, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So is your source the source of all creation? Or is it something else? That, put this in mind, that will only exist within a fraction of a moment in what we call the vastness of eternity. So then we have to go back and we have to ask ourselves this question again. If I am a spirit having a human experience, then to what do I want to be connected? And the reason why many of us don't feel ourselves as a spirit having a human experience is because we've allowed the intentions of humanity to dominate our thinking, to dominate our lives, to dominate our living. Who are you? Who are you? Or better yet, let me just go with, who am I? Well, let's go back and let's just kind of get this all the way back down to the molecular level. All right? Let's take this all the way back to the molecular level, because when you ask the question, who am I? Well, let's go back to the beginning, because at the end of it all, and at the beginning of it all, is a sperm and an egg. And when we look at that, the sperm that can really fit on the edge of the needle, right? When we look at that, we begin to go and we see cells. And we see cells, and we go inside those cells, we begin to see the protons and neutrons. And then we see the atom. I'm going right back to where I started. And inside of that atom, again, is a universe that mirrors and looks like every other atom within the universe. Which means that at the end of the day, who I am is connected. Who I am is connected, which means that ultimately I'm connected with the Creator, which means that I am a creator. I am a creator because of all of the atoms and protons and neutrons that exist on the planet. He happened to give my set and your set of protons, neutrons, and atoms the capacity to have dominion over all the other atoms, protons, and neutrons on the planet. And the reason he gave us dominion is because we have a piece of his creative force, the Spirit, which makes us creators. Don't believe me? Look out the window. Outside your window, you'll see brick buildings that were created and built. You'll see cars made out of metal that were created and built, sitting on rubber tires that were created and built. You'll see roads of concrete that were created and built. We are creators. The evidence is all around you. And we use words and language to create. What do you say to yourself? Many of us are so confused. Many of us are so emotionally distraught because of the creative language we put into ourselves. Oh, you ain't gonna do nothing. You can't do nothing. Here you go again. You said it again. Oh, you let them down again. Like, we say so many negative things to ourselves. We're reinforcing negativity into our bodies. And then we wonder why we're ill. We wonder why we're sick. What you call yourself is what it will be. And what we call others pushes a creative force and intention on who they should be, which is why we encounter resistance. When you think about the people you love, what you should be pushing on them is love. Many relationships break down not because of the other person, but because of you and because of who you said they are and who you said they will be and because of what you said they would do. And then when they go do it, you go, see, I told you. No, you told you. We create these things. So what separates us from spirit? Ego. Now, let's talk about the ego for a second, because this seems to be a bit of an abstract term. And so what is ego? Ego is, if we go back to what I said earlier, my humanity trying to dominate my spiritual existence. That's what ego is. Ego is concerned with how I look, what people think, what people might say, what brand I have on, what shoes, what scarf, what car, how big the house is. All these things are ego generated. And so when this becomes my focus, when this becomes my intention, and again, I'm not saying that we can't create those things with powerful intention. I said that I intended to create 6 figures a year, and I did that. And then I set an intention to become a millionaire. I did that. So I'm not saying, hey, now, again, what is the source? I know that the reason I want financial stability is so that I can serve my purpose. That's the source. I know the reason I want to continue to increase my financial situation is so I can give uninhibited. Again, what is your self? What is your source? Is it self-sourced or God-sourced? See, because at the end of the day, we need more of you all to be millionaires if your heart is in the right place. We need it. And this is why I'm teaching this. Because then you set the intention from a powerful spiritual place. Most of us ain't getting the money we want because it's from ego. And the ego has no capacity to create. Matter of fact, last week I wrote this on ego. And I didn't know how I was going to use it. It just came to mind. I wrote this down, just four small stanzas. And what I wrote is, what the ego creates is not sustainable. Creation, because all creation is spiritual. And ego is a function of survival. And surviving is the tension of all mortality. See, I stopped focusing on surviving a long time ago. Because if I am truly a spirit having a human experience, then there's only one thing that really matters, and that's my spiritual connectivity. My spiritual connectivity. There's so much truth out here, man, that we deny. And the reason I believe we deny it is because we're afraid of being confused. And the reason we're afraid of being confused is because we don't know how to tap into the spirit. See, all we got to do is check in. The teachings of the chakra, they already call the throat chakra and the reproductive chakra the creative zones. And the reason they call it the creative zones is because that's where all creation comes from. Well, we know the reproductive chakra, we know how that creates. And so then the throat chakra creates as you speak. Most of us are speaking and thinking things that if we put them on loudspeaker, we'd be embarrassed. And then again, we wonder why we have tension. So then what do? To operate within the spirit means that I'm flexible to the whims of the Creator. Woo-wee. What does that mean? When he says it's time to leave this job, you start looking for ways to leave the job. See, most of us right then, that's where we'll exist with intention for the rest of our life. Because I ain't leaving this job. But when spirit speaks, see, we have to stay flexible. Again, creating with powerful intention requires that I understand that I am a spirit having a human experience, and all of this human stuff is temporary. So then he says, okay, I need to stay flexible because I never know how the spirit may move me. And if I'm aligned with the spirit, that means I have creative capacity, which means I have no worries. Y'all with me? Which means I have no worries. It means 2020 and a pandemic comes, I have no worries. It means that 2021, all these mandates come down, I have no worries. Because I stay flexible to the spirit and not to humanity. So stay flexible, be mindful, be intentional. Part of how we stay connected to the spirit, you keep asking yourself questions. So when I opened the show, I talked about being 17 years old and questioning everything, questioning my faith, questioning Christianity, questioning it all. There was beauty in that. Most of us get scared if our child begins to question our faith. Oh, what are you doing? You don't do that. You don't question? No, we should allow them to question. The reason we don't trust it is because we don't trust spirit. We don't trust the creator. And if I trust my ability to pray for my child, to set intentions for my child, I know there's only a matter of time before my child reconnects. But most of us, we put this tension on. We put this tension on to the point where they run and never look back. So I began to question everything. And we should keep asking ourselves questions, because you have to understand that if what I'm saying right now occurs as new or occurs as something that you don't hear often, it's not because it's not known. It's because it's been hidden. Who hid it? That's why we question everything. So keep asking yourself questions, because as we ask ourselves questions, it gives the spirit opportunity to answer. Here's some great questions to ask. How do I practice intentionality? How do I practice mindfulness? How do I practice prayer? How do I practice meditation? How do I practice slowing down so I can be? How do I address my breakdowns with intentions? So we're spirits having a human experience, and part of what the human experience does is it makes us fallible. And so because we are fallible, that means we have breakdowns in intention. I intend to be loving towards my wife, and then I just saw in a place where I wasn't. Because of my human fallibility. Is that a word? Y'all get it. All right, so then I have to address my breakdowns. And what we have to understand is that a breakdown in intention is just an opportunity to reset the intention, to reboot the goal, and to start fresh towards my extraordinary results. See, here's what happens. We have breakdowns, and because I don't understand, like, did you forget you were human? Like we have these breakdowns, and we actually make it mean something negative about ourselves. Versus how I see a breakdown is just a reminder that I'm enveloped in this human experience. And so I set a spiritual intention, and my human experience created a breakdown. It's just a reminder. Oh, there you are. Okay. I don't abandon it. I reset it. So if the intention is to love my wife and I see I'm not showing up that way, I don't go, well, she's just unlovable then. Or she makes it too hard for me to love her. No. I just reload and reset. See, I happen to believe that my spiritual capacity to love my wife is so strong that even if she don't like me, if I keep just enveloping her in that love, she will melt. That is the power of spiritual intention. So, what should we be doing right now? Well, one, create an intention for who you intend to be. That's a good start. Create an intention for who you intend to be. And notice your humanity and ego get in the way. Because ego will also say, you can't do that. The same ego that told you to go buy the car because your girlfriend got a car It's the same ego that would then tell you, you can go get the car, but you can't become who you want to become. So what should you be doing right now? Create an intention for who you intend to be. See, because here's the thing. The future may be unpredictable, but you can commit to who you will be in that future. And you can create who you will be no matter what the future holds. Think about this whole pandemic. See, the pandemic is not something happening to you. We got to remember this. The pandemic is something happening with you. We happen to be living and experiencing this all at the same time. And so when you realize that it's happening with you, you experience it differently. Y'all get where I'm going? So who will you be? The reason why this pandemic took so many people out is because they didn't know who they were. And so then they had to redefine themselves when the pandemic came along. But if I know who I am today, then when the environment changes tomorrow, I still know who I be. 2022, we can go to war. I still know who I be. And that gives me peace. So what are your intentions? But then furthermore, what is your vision for your life, my dear creator? See, because if you don't have vision, that means you're operating in a loop. The only way to get out the loop is that you have to create it. Who will you be? What do you want? Who do you need to be? Then you might ask yourself, why does this matter? Well, it matters because you have a reticular activating system in your brain. You might say, well, Linal, how does that work? Well, the reticular activating system, what it does is it sifts and sorts and evaluates everything around you. But it evaluates everything around you based on your creative intentions. So when you actually have an intention for your life, an intention for who you intend to be, it gives your reticular activating system in the brain clear instructions on what it should be finding and what it should be locating so you can create that. This is how I went from being a 17-year-old who left home, who came back home at 22 with absolutely nothing, to a 45-year-old who is operating from abundance and living his dream. This is how. This is how. This is how I became a man that is fully aligned with his purpose, that it's clear that God is my only source. Your intentions are an active force. Your intentions are an active force. And so to operate and to live without intention means that you have not activated the most powerful part of who it is that you are and who it is that you should be. Your thoughts create your reality. And again, if you don't have an intention, that means your thoughts are everywhere and your thoughts are about everything. And the beauty of intention is that it begins to put guardrails up around your thoughts. I'm a man. I have crazy thoughts. But because I know who I intend to be, I'm like, oh no, that thought doesn't work here. Get away. Oh no, that thought is silly. That doesn't align with where we're going. Move. And so those thoughts never get full energy in my being where they can go create. See, the problem is some of us create our problems. I can't stand this man. if I just met another one. And then you meet them, and you go, my life is so complicated. I love two men. Well, you did it. You created the complication. You said, if I could just meet another man, and then you nursed that thought, and you nursed that intention. You went to work. You wore the makeup. You put on the short skirt. You put on the heels when you saw him. You walked a particular way. You introduced those complications into your life with your intentions. That's how powerful you are. What's your vision? What are your goals? What is the long view? And whatever it is, make it your intention. Make it your obsession. Make it the thing that you think about. So how are you currently creating your life? Where are you creating from? What is your current intention? How are you honoring that intention? And then whatever that intention is, here are the 3 ways to gain more focus. First, eliminate the noise. What's the noise in your life? For me, I found that most of my noise came from my smartphones and my electronics. So I literally eliminated the noise and turned off my phone notifications. Eliminate the noise. Where's the noise coming from? Number 2, create clear priorities. Every day I create what I call my 999 and my top 3 priorities for the day. What are the top 3 things that you absolutely must do today? Do you know? Do you know? Do you have an intention around that? See, this thing is simple. We make it complex. And then number 3, intentionally create inputs that align with your intentions. Affirmations, books, movies, documentaries. You know, I shared years ago when I changed my diet, part of the hack for changing my diet was my inputs. I said, okay, I'm going to stop eating meat. I started watching documentaries on why I shouldn't eat meat. Went a long time before I was like, ooh, I shouldn't eat meat. But again, part of the reason some of us intend to do the things that we do is because of our inputs. Are your intentions being sourced by movies? Are your intentions being sourced by sitcoms? Are your intentions being sourced by commercials? I'm out of time. Let me end with this. Set your intention for each day and launch into each day with a relentless vigor to create your intentions with action.